Hey y'all, it's your boy Colin. We're kicking off our celebration of Black History Month. Yes, that commemoration of institutional racial hostility is as popular as ever, especially in schools. Why don't we start with some of the fellas and their allies holding a big old sign reminding us what Black History Month is all about. Now let's move on out to Seattle, where just a couple days ago, a Seattle teacher, a public employee in Seattle, reminded us that, well, pretty soon we got to take the struggle out to the next level and we got to start killing people.
We're all operating under white supremacy, just so you know. And we need to start killing people. We need to start killing people. We need to start killing people.
Not that a lot of people need that much encouragement to practice black-on-white violence. Here's something from the streets of Philadelphia where black-on-white hostility, black-on-white violence is part of the DNA. There was a big article about this 2 years ago in a Philadelphia magazine called Being White in Philadelphia, where they talked about how this black-on-white hostility is something that's in the air, everybody's aware of. As soon as the magazine was published, the mayor came out, called it a despicable article. He said that he was going to refer the article to the city's Human Relations Commission. They had a big hearing where one black person after another stood up and said what a terrible thing that was for anybody to notice the enormous amount of black-on-white hostility and violence in Philadelphia. Well, sometimes it's just too hard to ignore. Well, as long as we're talking about history, here's a little historical story from the year 2003. A 15-year-old girl was out walking around. She was abducted by 3 black people in a car. She was raped and murdered. They murdered her by running her over in a car. They were indicted 3 years later. Then witnesses started changing stories this week. They indicted one of the guys again, except this time on new evidence. He's on the run. We'll let you know how that works out. The police have reminded people, if you help this person, you will be arrested as an accessory to the murder. That reminds me of that story, of course, from the former Attorney General of the United States, the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States of America, Loretta Lynch. She was talking to the Black Caucus just a few months ago. And prior to her speech, the 6 panelists who were college professors, activists, business leaders, elected officials, one after another, they stood up and gave their speech on black victimization and how it's relentless, how it's all everywhere, all the time, how that explains everything. So Loretta Lynch got up there and she put it in historical perspective. She reminded people that when she was a little girl, her grandfather, who was a minister, had a farm where he would shelter black criminals who were on the run. Cop or the sheriff would come to their farm looking for black criminals. They would say, "Hey, did you find Johnny or Jimmy or Joey? He's wanted for some pretty serious crimes." And Loretta and her grandfather would look at these law enforcement officers, shake their head, go, "No, we haven't seen anybody like that." Meanwhile, Johnny, Jimmy, or Joey was down in the basement hiding from the cops. And Loretta knew that was okay because everybody knows that in North Carolina back then, way back then, there was no such thing as justice. Well, the point of that conference where Loretta and her buddies were speaking to members of the Black Caucus and their buddies the point was, nothing has changed. There still is no justice for black people because cops are always picking on black people for no reason whatsoever. But not everybody's a victim of black-on-white crime and hostility. Some people are a little more aware of the risks and the dangers.
Just before midnight on Wednesday, the Winchester Police Department responded to a robbery and shots fired call at the 7-Eleven on Pleasant Valley Road in Winchester. 33-year-old Khalil Curtin of Winchester is charged with armed robbery, abduction, use of a firearm in the commission of a felony, and wearing a mask in public. Curtin entered the business, displayed a weapon, and demanded money. The male forced a female employee outside at gunpoint, at which time the female was able to retrieve her personal weapon to defend herself.
She fired shots, striking the man several times. He was rushed to the hospital this morning where he underwent surgery.
Some people still have a little bit to learn.
Shaken store owner Anana Yorn describing what happened inside P&P Seafood Friday night.
When I tell him to leave, he not leave.
The night turned violent inside the store about 10:30. East Lansdowne police say 25-year-old Michael McCoy went on a destructive rampage, all caught on video. Police say it happened after an intoxicated McCoy was refused service. Were you afraid?
Yeah, that's why I come to take the phone to call the office, the 911.
The video shows McCoy tossing a chair behind the glass, barely missing the owner. Customers call Mike. You then see the guy hurl a can of malt liquor at Mike. Here it is from another angle. He's not done yet. He goes back again, taking another chair, this time smashing it into the mirror that shatters all over the floor.
Was that on fire? Yeah, fire right here.
And that wasn't all. While inside, police say he also started a fire.
He had a small lighter that was shaped like a firearm. He was trying to burn the promotional beer signs, and they were plastic and they started melting. But
the destruction lasted less than 2 minutes, but long enough to cause hundreds of dollars in damage.
nobody needs that type of hassle when you're just trying to conduct an honest business.
It's been a bad week for Mike. Just a few days ago, he caught another guy on video peeing at the front counter. Don't worry, we won't show you that.
Some guy, he pee in the store too, you know, but I
They're peeing in the store?
Yeah.
Well, that's all today. That's all of our introduction to Black History Month, year 2017. Hope you learned a little bit about Black history, about how Black people are relentless victims of relentless white racism all the time, everywhere. That explains everything. And how while you're learning that, the one thing you do have to keep in mind at all times is don't make the Black kids angry.